question, we have Meg Green and David Solskis representing the city. We have had an issue with MGAT's recording of the December public meeting. So there are two members that have not seen the information on 0 and 990 Naugatuck Avenue. My instinct is that we want a full board because there's an extra burden on the test for a pass. So I think we have until March 22nd is our current deadline to act on this issue. And I think in fairness to the applicant, it's best that we have all 10 members having the capability to vote on it. So, so that will not be heard tonight. And I'm sorry for people that have come out again, but I think it's in your best interest to be okay with that. So actually our first order of business is 3133 Pearl Street, petition of Patrick Tarantino for coastal area management review on map 22, block 459, lot 27 and 27A, of which Patrick Tarantino was the owner. Hello.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Flanagan, 1460 New Haven Avenue, Milford. You hear me now? Andrew Flanagan, 1460 New Haven Avenue, Milford. I prepared the CAM report and the plans. Mr. Tarantino is proposing to build two houses on number 3133 Pearl Street. They are located currently in the site coastal resource of freshwater wetlands and coastal flood hazard. We're proposing to build the house. The garage floor will be 1.5 feet above the center line of the road, and then the resulting first floor will be an additional 9 feet higher than that at 13.6, 13.7 respectively. Currently on each lot there is inland wetlands. The properties went through the Milford Inland Wetlands Agency and hearing, and it was approved on December 5th, 2018. On lot 31 Pearl Street, there's approximately 126 square feet of wetlands, and on 33, there's 554. The recommendation was primarily to place a barrier around the wetlands once construction is started.
Excuse me, could you, I guess that mic isn't working that great. If you could just speak more into it, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
All right. Currently, we're showing a fence being put around the wetlands. They agreed that they would accept boulders being placed there. The houses proposed are going to be 28 by 50 feet, which will require for stormwater management the placement of three 350-gallon rain barrels, which will be tied into the gutter system so that they can retain the water after a 1-inch flood or 1-inch rainfall, and then be released through a spigot once the rainfall is stopped. Due to the fact that it's in the coastal wetlands, the topsoil stockpiling will be done off-site, and let's go through here. We propose the first floors to be at 13.6, 13.7, which will be approximately 2.6 and 2.7 feet above the base flood elevation of 11, the AE zone that it's currently in. That's about it. That's, it's a pretty straightforward plan.
Great, thank you very much. David?
Yeah, the applicant is proposing to remove the existing single-family house that was built on the property line of two conforming lots and construct as two zoning-compliant structures. Located in the AE11 flood zone, both houses are zoning compliant with a height of 35 feet from average grade. Prior to issuing a building permit, architectural drawings shall be revised to be consistent with the approved site plans. Any changes to site conditions proposed after the initial inland wetlands review will require a new inland wetlands administrative review prior to a zoning permit being issued.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Grant.
I have a question. On drawing A3, there's a note that states, says, please see structural plans based upon soil borings for details and size for the footing. And it's based on the 2012 IRC, which is actually, if you're going to be submitting for a building permit, you need to have that updated because we're using the 2015 IRC right now. But on the drawings, I was just wondering, I didn't see any details for boring information or anything like that, so I was wondering, the footing that is proposed on the architectural drawings, was that coordinated with any kind of boring? Because our regulations, section 5.8.6.1 and 5.8.6.2 basically clearly state that the foundation has to be anchored according to FEMA for it doesn't float, you know, for rise.
There was no borings done. We would have to go through and verify and have those performed so that the foundation can be built or designed and then built to code.
So at this point, so the architecturals have not been coordinated with any kind of structural, with any kind of soil testing or anything, right?
No, I don't believe so.
Second question I have.
Excuse me, hold on one second. Pat?
Can't hear you. You got to get up to the mic. There was some tests done in the. I go to the mic.
Yeah, you'd have to come to the microphone, sorry about that. And speak closely to it, it's not working so great.
Yes, there was borings done about a year ago, and they got all the information to the architect, so he has all that. So I don't know, it's not on the plan, the foundation?
Could you state your name and address for the record?
Pat Tarantino, 23 Pearl Street.
Thank you. David, am I correct in assuming that when it's in for a building permit, the proper footings would have to be
Yes, it would.
verified against soil borings? And,
Absolutely.
okay, so that's more of a question for the building department when permits are coming.
Yeah, we won't, obviously, we won't issue a zoning permit or building permit unless the plans are, compliant with our regulations in the building code. And there's overlap between our regulations and the building code, so,
Right.
There won't be a permit issued unless it's building compliant.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Grant, anything else yet?
One other item. Your survey drawings, and you just stated that you're going to have basically the elevations. Your garage on the survey is at 4 feet 8 inches. On the architectural drawings, it shows it at 7 feet. So you need to make sure you coordinate between your site drawings and your architectural drawings. Also, the architectural drawings, a lot of the things are based on the 2012 code, so you need to make sure they're updated.
Yep. Yeah, I just realized his elevations were off, so I was going to make a note to him. So here again, when Pat goes to submit for the building plans, will be updated and everything will coincide.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'd hear a motion. Mr. Sadi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve as presented the petition of Patrick Tarantino for a coastal area site plan review on map 22, block 459, parcel 27 and 27A, of which Patrick Tarantino is the owner.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'd like to add to that.
Mr. Grant.
I'd like to add to that motion, if acceptable, just to state that the survey drawings and the architectural drawings will be updated. So basically, we're not approving as they're presented. It would be amended. They would be amended.
Mr. Sadi, is that okay with you?
No objection by me. Through you, Mr.
We have a revised motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Grant. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Under new business, we have public hearings. We have 4 public hearings, and they are all with regard to proposed changes to the zoning regulations. I would pass this off to you, Mr. Grant, if you'd like to talk about these zone changes.
All right. The first change is amendment number 41-18. It's a proposed change to Article 3, Section 3.9.6, and 3.9.6.1. It's lawful non-conforming lots proposed by the Regulations Committee for a word change. So you want to do one at a time? So that's the first one. So we would need to take a motion and a...
Does anyone have any questions regarding this, Mr. Sadi?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Grant. The proposed text that we have, basically, we restrike the whole thing and withdrawn that. Is that what we're doing?
Mr. Sadi, I think I asked you a question, or did you ask me a question?
It was through the chairman to Mr. Grant. On 4118, 39.6.1, proposed text is to take everything out and just indicate it's reserved for future use. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, would you, Mr. Grant, explain why you feel that the existing wording needed to be changed?
Existing wording is basically, we don't have authorization on the board to do it. It's just not a valid regulation.
Mr. Sulkus, would you comment, please?
The regulation that's being struck talks about prorating a portion of the lot against the requirements of the regulations. And if you actually read the existing language and you ask 2 people what you think it means, you'll get 2 different answers. So it's not a very well-written regulation. Its original intent, we believe, was to allow some uses on a lot, say a shopping center, where the shopping center may have been non-conforming, but by putting in this other use, our regulations wouldn't allow an expansion of a non-conformity, but this would sort of in some way prorate that, so you might be able to get a use in, but it's not clear.
Do you feel in the long run we should come up with some language that addressed the original intent of this current language?
Well, as I always like to tell the board, unless there's a situation that requires language, I mean, without the situation, you're creating a solution in search of a problem. Right now, we don't have a problem. No one has come in, to my knowledge, to use this, so taking it out may not be an issue. If at some point, there's some sort of unusual non-conforming situation, we could look at it then.
Great, thank you. So we have, is there any further comment from the board? Then I would ask for a motion.
Oh, Mr. Chair, just a reminder, this is a public hearing.
Okay. Do we need to open and close the public hearing for each one?
You could do it. That would be the cleanest way to open
Okay.
and close.
So this is a public hearing. If there's anyone in the public who'd like to speak, please come to the podium. Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Any further discussion? We could have a motion. Mr. Marlowe?
Move to approve as presented, Article 3, Section 3.9.6, modification of requirements 3.9.6.1, lawful non-conforming lots. That's been proposed by the Regulations Subcommittee, and for reference, the tracking number is 41-1.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Grant, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, passes.
Next item is amendment number 42-18, Section 4, Section 4.1.1, structures or accessory buildings in residential districts, and Section 4.1.1.7, proposed by the Regulations Committee, is to add some additional wording. Right now, it says no structure or accessory building shall be constructed or to house animals unless such buildings are located at least 100 feet from any street and 50 feet from any lot line. The additional wording would say, except the keeping of poultry, in accordance with Section 3.1.3.4. That section for poultry allows poultry to be closer to the residents and closer to the street. So this additional wording basically coordinates with that particular section.
And could you tell us why this is, why this needed to be changed?
Because it coordinates to 3.1.3.4 for poultry.
Oh, so it's eliminating a conflict.
Yes.
It's a clarification.
Mr. Sulkus?
Yeah, it's a clarification. It makes it, the regulations more understandable.
This is a public hearing, so if anyone would like to speak to this, please come to the podium. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion. Mr. Marlowe?
I move to approve as presented, Article 4, Section 4.1.1, structures or accessory buildings in residential districts, 4.1.1.7, proposed by the Regulations Subcommittee, and for reference, the tracking number would be 42-18.
Mr. Chair? Can you also make sure that the effective date is stated for this, as well as for the previous regulation that was approved?
Effective date would be 3/18/19.
Great, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Nancy? Any comments, discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Grant?
Next item is Article 5, Figure 4, minimum off-street parking regulations, item number 7. And actually, at this particular point in time, at our last subcommittee meeting, I think, or the one before, there were some additional comments brought up. So at this time, I'd like to actually table this one for further discussion in the subcommittee.
Without exception, we will table it. Okay, there is none, so we'll table it.
Next proposed change is amendment number 44-18 to section, Article 5, Section 5.1.4, off-street parking requirements, 5.1.4.2, prohibited drive-through windows, curb cuts, and driveways proposed, again, by the Regulations Committee. This is actually a new regulation, which would take and prohibit drive-through windows, curb cuts, and driveways in the MCDD zone and the CDD2 zone. This is basically to eliminate heavy cross-traffic over sidewalks on the downtown area or in district areas, so that we're not basically every 6 feet or 10 feet or whatever, you're going across and cars are trying to get across the sidewalks it makes more of a pedestrian area and walk for our downtown and our district, our store type areas.
Mr. Salkus,
Yes?
would you comment?
Well, well, if you read it, I mean, it is for the reasons that Mr. Grant did bring up. The one that you should pay close attention to is basically the limiting of with the 1,000-foot linear distance of the drive-through windows. So just be aware that, if you're in the MCDD or the CDD2, if you have a drive-through window, another one couldn't be established, if it's within 1,000 feet of an existing one.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, so if anyone would like to come and speak, please come to the podium. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Sadi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Grant. Could you explain why we're only doing the MCDD and the CDD as opposed to any other parts of the city?
In our plan of conservation, there was mention about creating more pedestrian ways in our downtown area, center of Milford and the Devon areas for foot traffic. And so with that, that's what brought this up, was basically in that, that document, it's, like I said, generating more area for foot traffic and cutting down on the number of cross tracks going across the sidewalks. And that's why those two areas were targeted.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Marlowe.
I know I sit on the regulation subcommittee, but I'm still not sure I'm pleased with the 1,000-foot. It just seems a little too much that, we're limiting a business from establishing another business within 1,000 feet that has a drive-through, be that a bank or whatever else it may be. We're saying that can no longer happen if they're, within 1,000 feet of each other. And I'd just like to know if there's any, if we can relook at that 1,000-foot distance.
Well, I agree. I think we both talked about this in the subcommittee when we were sending it out around to the stakeholders, and thought that this would be the time to address it, and now we are addressing it. I agree that I think the 1,000 feet is too limiting, and we want to encourage businesses, not shut them down before they get started. So, I mean, I would be in favor of making that a smaller distance, personally. Would we need, David, would we need to recirculate that? Or if we had a motion to just change that to, say, arbitrarily 500 feet?
You can do that because it's just a distance. You're not changing the substance of it, so you can choose whatever number, modify it however you'd like.
Any further discussion?
I'd comment, if you want to cut it down, I wouldn't go any lower than 800 square feet, 800 feet. The distance was based on looking at lot widths in those areas, and that's where the 1,000 came up with, is because for the distances for sight, because coming across the sidewalk, a car's going to stop before it gets out onto the street for sight lines and so on like that. That's why the 1,000 was put in there. I would go, if you want to make it smaller, I would say 800, but I wouldn't go any smaller than that.
Mr. Marlowe?
Well, while 800 is better than 1,000 for sure, I mean, and that is a starting point, I guess I would just, just want us to maybe discuss it a little bit more as a board, just to make sure that we look at this area, whatever areas we're identifying, and look at the businesses that are there and see what impact even the 800 would have. And maybe it's not, maybe it's, as Mr. Grant is saying, with the property widths, it's not an issue.
But so that if they're 50-foot widths, even 800 would be 16 different properties. It's still pretty large in my mind, actually.
Through you, yeah, I would agree. It seems like a lot to be, whether it's, even if it's 500 feet, that's a pretty good distance from one driveway to another.
Well, I mean, if you want to make a, Mr. Sadi.
Thank you. Just want to chime in this too. And Mr. Grant, if you want to answer, that's fine. But for example, one of the ones that I'm concerned about is the Devon District. On the corner of Naugatuck and Bridgeport Avenue, there's a bank, but the drive-through is in the rear of the bank, where we don't expect to be on the side. So, I mean, what are we measuring for the distance? We measure from where the actual drive-through is. So if it's located in the rear of a building, do you count that? And you see some of the banks, it's on the side, some it's in the rear. But that's what I thought about specifically. I'm also thinking about the bank that starts on the Milford Green, which is, I believe, a People's Bank. But there's really, other than the church, there's not a lot of buildings in between. Yet if you get closer to downtown, there is a bank in the corner of High Street where it's more compressed. And I just thought that the 1,000 was really way too much.
And just for clarification, in the proposal, number 1 does specify that the measurement is from property line to property line.
How would that work on a corner lot? If you have, say, the example of the Milford Bank in Devon on Naugatuck, would you take the property line of the bank from the parking lot on Naugatuck up to the corner onto the US 1 and then go either way to measure?
Yeah,
Exactly.
property line to property line. So whatever the closest property line is to whatever the next proposed
Gotcha, okay.
site would be.
Depending which direction you go, yeah, okay. Any further comments? I think we could, you know, any board member can make a motion, and with whatever distance you feel is appropriate, and if it passes, fine. If not, we keep going after it until we find something that does. So, Mr. Marlowe, if you feel strongly about it.
I think that I would feel more comfortable with 500 feet. But I would also, maybe just in what Mr. Solkis just said about how we take the measurement, do we need to look at that? Should it be from curb cut to curb cut? You know, if you have a driveway in the middle of your property, but the next one doesn't start till the corner of your property, that's where the measurement starts. Should it be from, you know, opening to opening, so to speak, or curb cut to curb cut? I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah, I mean,
there.
I think at one point it matters more the distance than where you measure from. If it's 1,000 feet from the driveway or 500 feet, you know, the lot line, the property line's not going to be that much further. I mean, de minimis, I would think, 50, 20 or 50 feet. Especially in Devon and Milford Center, they're fairly compact. Ms. Cater.
Two things. You know, I may not know some of the background on it, but has something happened where it's kind of, this has been brought up, or are we trying to preempt the problem or an issue, or, I mean, where's this thought coming from? I mean, is it really a problem, or are we just trying to avoid it? And the other thing I want to say, too, is if you do 800 feet, say, you could always change it, right? If it becomes an issue, if a business wants to come in, say that's ridiculous, it could be changed. I mean, we're changing them all the time, right? So just kind of two separate ways to look at it.
And to answer your point about why it's in front of us, Mr. Grant talked about our plan of conservation and development, trying to encourage an easier walkability in both downtown, you know, these two zones, which are basically downtown Milford and Devon Center area. But yeah, good point. With regard to, you could change it again if we kind of don't want to do it all the time. I mean, right, a lot of these have been coming up and will come up because we're doing some housekeeping, but.
I mean, you know, looking at Milford Center, pretty much it's already defined, all the curbs and all the driveways. I don't really see it changing much. I mean, and people are dealing with it now, so how are we changing to make it more pedestrian-oriented by doing that? I don't really, not sure.
Yeah, just limiting the new curb cuts. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed amendment 44-18 with the change from 1,000 linear feet to 800 linear feet.
Mr. Chair? Did we have it open for public comment? And then did we close that? Okay, I just want to make sure.
This is a public hearing, so if anyone would like to come forth and speak, come to the podium. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. So now we need a new motion now that the public hearing is closed.
I make a motion to approve amendment number 44-18 with the change of 1,000 linear feet to 800 linear feet.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We do not have a second. Do we have another motion? Mr. Marlowe. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll split the difference. I'll
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Mr. Sadie's opposed. Next order of business is liaison reports. Do we have any? We don't have any, I guess.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
There's some other business. The regulation subcommittee was moving forward to the board some proposed regulations to be circulated.
Right, that comes, on this sheet, it's after the liaison reports for some reason.
I apologize.
So with no liaison reports, we'll go to regulation subcommittee. Back to Mr. Grant.
Nothing at this time.
Actually, we have 5 items that we have, that we're looking for approval. So there's 5 items that we're looking to give authorization to send these 5 items off to the stakeholders for their review. If their review comes back without exception, then they will be in front of us to discuss and approve with a public hearing. So we'll take them all at once. Do we have a motion to send these off to the stakeholders?
I make a motion to propose, to send amendment number 49-18, number 52-18, 53-18, 54-18, and 56-18 out to the different state agencies and city agencies for their review at this time.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Marlowe? All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion? Mr. Marlowe, second? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Chair's report, I have none. Staff report?
None this evening.
This evening. We have a motion for adjournment? Okay, so moved.